If you're trying to move to Canada in 2026, you're probably feeling anxious, confused, and honestly overwhelmed. Every website says something different, the rules keep changing, and it feels like one wrong step can ruin everything. Some people say that Canada is closing immigration in 2026, others say that Canada needs immigrants more than ever. In this video, I will walk you through the realistic and the most effective ways that people can move to Canada in 2026. No complicated terms or false promises, just what actually works. And these are not dream scenarios, these are paths that work for real immigrants, including myself. By the end of this video, you will not just have information, but you'll have clarity and a realistic plan forward. I immigrated to Canada myself using one of these ways, and I've been keeping up to date with the latest rules, so now I would like to share my experience and my knowledge with people just like you to help you arrive to Canada and build a life here. So let's start with the big picture, because this is where a lot of people get confused. Canada is not open to everybody, but it's also not closed. It is selective. In 2026, Canada is very clear about who it wants. It mainly wants people who can work, fill in real labor shortages, and settle here long term, not just arrive, struggle, and leave. Healthcare workers, skilled trades, tech specialists, and people willing to work in smaller cities and provinces. This is why somebody with an average background but a highly in-demand skill has a better chance to immigrate to Canada than somebody with a perfect resume that Canada doesn't really need. And once you understand this, immigration starts to make way more sense. Almost every immigration pathways in Canada fits into one of the 5 categories. And in this video, I will walk you through each one from most effective to most misunderstood so that you can figure out for yourself where you realistically fit. Work to permanent residency pathway is one of the strongest and most effective ways to move to Canada in 2026, especially if you don't have a perfect profile on paper. This is the route that works for thousands of immigrants, even though it doesn't sound as glamorous as direct PR pathway. The idea behind it is very simple. Instead of applying for permanent residency right away, instead you first come to Canada to work, you gain Canadian work experience, and then you apply for permanent residency from inside the country. In practice, this usually means that you first get a temporary work permit, you work here legally for a certain period of time, and then you apply through one of the federal or provincial programs. Most immigrants think that education, titles, and past achievements matter more. But Canada places enormous trust in people who have already proven one thing: that they can live here, show up to work, pay their taxes, and function in the Canadian society. Once you have done all that, you're no longer just a file number. You're somebody who the country already knows. And here's an important reality check, because this is where a lot of people get stuck mentally. You do not need a perfect job. You do not need a 6-figure salary. What you do need is a job that is real, legal, and in demand. Many immigrants start in roles that are not their dream job, and that's okay. Canada's system is designed to reward contribution, not prestige. I've seen people coming here thinking that this job is temporary, it's below my level, it's not for me, and this may be true emotionally, but strategically, this may be the job that changes everything. It gives you Canadian work experience, network, references, pay stubs, tax files, and most importantly, eligibility for programs that you could not access otherwise. My first job was selling pizza at a food court for minimum wage while I was studying here as an international student. It wasn't very glamorous, it barely helped me make ends meet, but it was my first Canadian work experience. My next job was working as a research assistant after I finished my bachelor's program. It was a temporary contract and it didn't really give me a lot of career opportunities, but it helped me get scientific publications with my name on it, and then I was able to apply for scholarships, and I got a total of over 37,000 scholarships for my master's program. And this is why I always say that the first job in Canada does not define your future, it opens doors. What matters most is not where you start, but what this first step allows you to build next. Express entry is the most talked about immigration system in Canada, and yes, it does exist in 2026. For many people, this is the first immigration program that they hear about when they start researching. But this is also where expectations do not often match reality. Here's the truth that does not get said often enough. Express entry on its own is extremely competitive. It is not impossible, but it works best if you already have something extra that will help you stand out. Canada originally designed this system to rank people against each other, so very small differences can actually have a very big impact. And this extra can take different forms. For some people, it's Canadian work experience, which immediately boosts your profile because you have already proven that you can live and work in Canada. For others, it's a valid job offer, which signals to the government that an employer actually needs them. Strong English and French skills can actually make a big difference, especially French, that's becoming more and more important in the recent years. And of course, working in a profession that Canada urgently needs can push your profile higher than somebody with a more generic background. Where express entry becomes tricky is when people apply from outside of Canada. If you have no Canadian experience, very average language skills, and no job offer, express entry usually is not a quick win. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try, but it means that you should take it as a long-term strategy and not your only plan. Many people stay in the pool for months or even years, improving their language scores and getting more experience wherever they can while they're waiting. And this is why I often tell people, do not put all of your eggs in the same basket. Express entry works best when it's a part of a bigger plan. You can improve your chances by combining it with other pathways. For example, working in Canada first, studying strategically, or looking into provincial programs. And when you do that, express entry stops being a source of frustration and instead becomes a tool that you can actually use. The next one is Provincial Nominee Programs, or PNPs. This is one of the most underestimated immigration programs in Canada, and the mistake that a lot of people make is not looking into them. Many people think that Canada has one single immigration program, but in reality, it does not work like that. Canada is made up of 10 provinces and 3 territories, and each of them runs their own immigration program with their own priorities. The logic behind PNPs is actually very straightforward. You help our province and we will help you stay in Canada. Immigration through education is also still valid in 2026, but only if you do it strategically. This is one of the most misunderstood routes because a lot of people focus on getting their study permit and getting a diploma without thinking what comes next. The real value is everything around it. It's about getting Canadian education that employers here recognize and trust. It's about access to post-graduation programs which allow you to stay in Canada legally after you graduate and get that priceless Canadian work experience. It's about the time that you're given to build connections, to understand job market, and to work towards your permanent residency while already being in the system. And I've seen people making so many mistakes here. They choose random programs just because they're easy to get in. They enroll in private colleges without any career outcome simply because an agent recommended them. And some genuinely believe that studying in Canada automatically leads to permanent residency, which is not true. What works much better is a focused approach. Short, practical programs tend to be more effective than long academic ones, especially if they lead to jobs that Canada really needs. And most importantly, successful students have a clear plan after graduation, not just a plan to arrive to Canada. And I actually made that same mistake. I arrived to Canada when I was only 19 in 2013. I got accepted to Concordia University in the psychology program because I truly liked that major. I had actually finished 2 years of the university in Russia, and I took a couple of psychology classes, so I really fell in love with it. But little did I know that to become an actual practicing psychologist in Canada, you need to first complete your master's program and get a PhD title, then do a residency program and get a license, and only then you can actually become a psychologist. And that would mean that I would have to continue paying international tuitions for many years, and obviously I did not have that opportunity. So I graduated with a bachelor's programs, and unfortunately I had to switch fields. I did get my permanent residency after all because I was studying in Quebec, and here the system is a little bit more favorable. But I still had to figure something with my career, so I went back to school, I got a master's program, and I launched my career in marketing after all. So don't make my mistakes. Think strategically. Studying in Canada as an international student is very expensive, so it really is a big commitment. And the question you should be asking is not, can I study in Canada, but what will these studies actually lead to? Family and partnership pathways are another way that a lot of people move to Canada. And this includes spousal sponsorships, common law partnerships, and family reunification programs. If this option applies to you, it can be the strongest and the most secure paths that are available to you. At the same time, it's also one of the most sensitive. Canada takes these applications very seriously because the goal here is to reunite families and not create immigration shortcuts. And that means that the government looks very closely at whether that relationship is genuine and ongoing. Canada is very strict about proof. They want to see evidence of shared life, living together, shared responsibilities, communication history, and long-term plans. It's not about having perfect paperwork, it's about proving that the relationship exists, not just for immigration purposes. If you think that this is your path, the most important advice that I can give you here is to be clear and honest. Trying to rush things, exaggerate details, taking shortcuts, or even lie can backfire and lead to refusals and long delays. When done properly, family immigration is not only the strongest option, but also the most stable way to build a real life in Canada. But before we finish, let's do a quick reality check on paths that are often overrated. There are a lot of ideas floating around that rarely work on their own. Things like, I'll just come to Canada and figure things out, or turning a visitor visa into a permanent residency without a clear plan. Then there are random labor market impact assessment promises online, and endless social media schemes claiming guaranteed immigration. The truth here is simple. If something sounds too good to be true, do not fall for it. Canada's immigration system is not designed for shortcuts and luck. The people who succeed here are those who plan strategically, follow real pathways, and take consistent steps. If I had to sum up immigration to Canada in one single sentence, it would be this: Canada rewards planning, patience, and ability to adapt. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to have everything figured out. What matters most is being strategic, knowing your options, understanding your strengths, and actually taking steps that move you forward. If you're watching this and you're feeling overwhelmed, this is completely normal. Most immigrants feel like that at the beginning of their journey, and so did I. If this video helped you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below sharing your story and which pathway you were considering for Canada in 2026. Let me know if you have any questions, and I would be happy to provide my guidance for you.